and make it a little more user-friendly, but I apologize if it comes across as a lecture because yeah, that's what I do. Sorry. I'm just going to stop sharing my camera and then I will share my screen. Okay, there we go. All right, so good morning, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about intellectual well-being, which is obviously one of the dimensions on the wellness wheel. And, you know, is one thing that we need to know from the beginning is that none of these aspects of the wellness wheel operate independently. They are all intertwined and one is dependent on the other. So we need to keep that in the back of our minds the whole time. And you'll probably hear me repeat a lot of the things that you've already heard from other speakers regarding the wellness wheel. But today we're going to talk about just about intellectual well-being. So the first myth that we need to bust when it comes to intellectual well-being is that it's only for old people. I know that we have this idea that when you get older, your cognitive ability declines, and when people are in old age homes or are older, they continuously need to be stimulated so that they don't, fall into the traps of dementia or, lose their memories. But intellectual well-being or mental health or intellectual wellness, there's a number of different synonyms we can use. It's important for everybody, and it should start at a really young age, developing and maintaining intellectual wellness. But it's particularly important for us as teachers to keep ourselves intellectually well. So obviously, in the beginning, I'd just like to define what intellectual well-being is. So when I was doing my research for this, there are a number of different definitions, and people have got different things to say about it, but generally it comes down to a few things. Firstly, it's about your ability to think, but not only just to think, but to think critically. It's about your ability to learn, whether that be seriously in a formal academic program or simply just for fun. And it is all about being creative. I'm going to discuss each of these elements separately under separate subheadings, but that basically is what intellectual wellness is. It's also about being able to make decisions based on what you know and not simply reacting to external stimuli. One of the biggest characteristics of intellectual well-being is having an open mind and not being threatened by other people's opinions. When we are intellectually well, as I said, we can think critically, we can analyze situations, solve problems, and use logic. When we are intellectually well, we can take charge of our lives and live them according to our values. The benefits of intellectual wellness allow us to make choices that help us grow personally and professionally. And I think that is the crux of intellectual wellness, is the ability to grow personally in our private lives and professionally. And it relates, obviously, as I said, to an individual engaging in creative and stimulating mental activities. Intellectual wellness encourages learning. It's important to explore new ideas and to become a better rounded person. It stimulates curiosity. Well, if you're mentally well, then obviously that your curiosity comes to the fore. And it's important because it motivates you to try new things and to develop a better understanding of how you see yourself and the relationship of yourself with others. And being intellectually well, you have to ask yourself these 4 questions. Are you open to new ideas? Do you seek personal growth by learning new skills? Do you search for learning opportunities and stimulating mental activities? And do you look for ways to use your creativity? So intellectual wellness, and this is where it links with so many of the other aspects of the wellness wheel, has 3 aspects that are very important. The first, and this is relating to active participation. If you want to be intellectually well, you have to have active participation in scholastic endeavors, whether that be learning in your private capacity or learning in a formal course, there has to be a link with your community, because just like with social wellness, intellectual wellness grows if you are linked with other people, and you need to have a link with your cultural community. And it is important because this leads to a stimulating and successful life. And it's part of living that wellness lifestyle. Now, the next topic I want to talk about is curiosity, and I need you to forgive me for this, because I'm going to speak quite a bit on curiosity, because curiosity is important. So curiosity is defined basically as a strong desire to learn something or an unusual interest in something. And you can develop your curiosity by, looking out for things that interest you and then, delving into it. But there are many benefits to being curious. One of those is better brain health. The mind is a muscle, and the more you exercise it, the better it becomes. And curiosity allows you to do that. Curiosity also improves intelligence. Curiosity is the engine of intellectual achievement, and those who are more interested in a topic will learn faster and prime the brain for better learning. Research has shown that improved intelligence through curiosity is associated with high-performing individuals. Curiosity also helps you to cultivate positive relationships. Let's face it, we all like to feel as if people are interested in us. It's something we value in our friendships. And curiosity can help us be more empathetic, because we are making an effort to really find out about someone else by questioning, rather than just taking everything at face value. In turn, this helps us to understand our world and care more deeply about others. On a personal level, I can say that when I meet a new person, I always try to tell them nothing about myself. I sit, and I ask them questions. I pepper them with questions. And I once had somebody ask me, "What's with the 20 questions?" And I said, I'm just curious to get to know who you are and where you come from. I love learning about new people and new things. And yeah, maybe some people can find that intrusive, but that's part of my personality and what I do. Curiosity can also help you solve problems. Curiosity is associated with intelligence, creativity, and problem-solving abilities. I always say Google is my best friend, but yeah, if you're curious about something and you need to solve a problem, if you need to solve a problem, curiosity will help you with that. Then curiosity makes sure that you never get bored. Curious people rarely find life boring, because there's always something new to explore and discover. Any event can be turned into something fascinating by sharpening your observation and giving your attention to something you would normally miss. Walt Disney embraced curiosity as one of the core ingredients of living a fulfilling and exciting life. And he said, "We keep moving forward, opening doors, doing things, because we are curious, and curiosity is what leads us down new paths." My daughter and I have a little motto that we always say to each other. Normally you would say, "This too shall pass," but ours is "keep moving forward," from Walt Disney. But the next question is, how can you be more curious? You can actually learn to be curious. And there are a couple of tips that I can give you. The first is to cultivate a growth mindset. Throughout our lives, we collect a range of information and build up a set of values and beliefs which are important to us. We can, however, if we are not careful, end up with a fixed mindset. It is important to challenge ourselves and be open to new experiences, and always remember that we never stop learning and growing, which is the most exciting part of being alive. The next one is to ask questions. Questions are the keys to unlock a whole trove of exciting treasures. I mean, asking questions is the first step that you teach children when they're learning to read, or teaching them reading comprehension. The first step is, what do you know about your topic? Ask questions. Great questions to ask are who, how, what, when, why, and with why being the best one of all, obviously. Always be critical. It is also important to question the answers that you receive. It is amazing what you can unearth when you probe a little deeper than the superficial first layer of small talk. The next tip I can give you is to feel the fear, but be curious anyway. Sometimes we avoid being curious because we fear what we may discover. However, there are so many missed opportunities that go by the wayside because we fail to explore further. This in turn can lead us to getting stuck in a rut, and then life can become mundane and boring. Being optimistic and approaching every situation with the intention of discovering something useful can help us to live a more fulfilling, exciting, and interesting life. Adopting a curious mindset can indeed bring about a multitude of personal benefits. But also, in a world where agility and innovation is key to attaining that competitive edge, curiosity is fast becoming a relevant imperative. As I mentioned before, we talk about intellectual wellness as a balance between that in your personal life and that in your private life. So intellectual wellness is related to both. Intellectual wellness can be fostered in all aspects of your life, and some people would argue that it needs to be fostered in your life. You need to be curious and interested in the new innovations in your field of expertise in teaching. And you also need to be curious and mindful of keeping your personal life interesting and challenging. I am going to discuss the different dimensions of intellectual well-being, but I first just want to discuss the benefits. There are many benefits, obviously, as I've mentioned in the section before on curiosity, but there are many benefits that come with practicing intellectual wellness. And some of these benefits include tolerance and respect for others, having a sense of dignity and a place of belonging, enhancing memory power, improving how you express your thoughts, and having a sense of purpose and self-confidence. The intellectual wellness is made up of a couple of dimensions, and I'm just going to list them quickly, and then we'll discuss them in order. The first one is the idea of engaging in lifelong learning. The second is being open to new ideas. The third is being creative. The fourth is reading, and the fifth is having a hobby. If you put all of these 5 dimensions together, you are on your way to being intellectually well or having intellectual well-being. The first one, and the most important one, as far as I'm concerned, people might differ with me, is the idea of lifelong learning. Okay, so lifelong learning recognizes that humans have a drive to explore, learn, and grow, and encourages us to improve our own quality of life and our sense of self-worth by paying attention to the ideas and goals that inspire us. Lifelong learning is a form of self-initiated education that focuses on personal development. So lifelong learning is not about a formal education. It's about extra learning that you do outside of a formal education. While there is no standardized definition of lifelong learning, it has generally been taken to refer to the learning that occurs outside of formal educational institutes such as schools or universities. And it is all about learning new things about the way that your mind processes information, and all of these things together help you succeed. So some of the examples of lifelong learning that come to the fore are things like developing a new skill. And that skill could be absolutely anything, because research has shown that as soon as you apply your mind to learning a new skill, it engages and helps with your intellectual well-being. So things like sewing and cooking, public speaking, playing the guitar, playing the piano. My 81-year-old aunt is busy learning to play the ukulele, I mean, of all instruments, but she's having so much fun and it's so engaging. Then, of course, another example is self-taught study, learning a new language, subscribing to an interesting podcast, and doing some sort of research on interesting topics. And here I can recommend TEDx or Udemy or LinkedIn Learning as examples of teaching yourself new things. All of TEDx gives you interesting talks about interesting topics. You can literally type in any topic and you'll find someone who has spoken about it. You can do free courses on both Udemy and on LinkedIn Learning, and in that way learn. I like to use Udemy the best because, say, for example, I want to try a new teaching style in my class, or I want to engage with something that I know nothing about in the classroom. Udemy often offers courses on things like that, and then I go and look it up, learn about it, read about it, and of course YouTube is your friend too. If you need any information or you want to learn how to do anything, YouTube is your friend. The next tip is learning a new sport. Obviously, anything related to exercise will also help with your intellectual well-being. So this is related to the dimension of physical well-being. You can learn to use new technologies, smart devices, new software. Try to learn as much as you can about new technologies, because this really helps you not only have intellectual strength in your personal capacity, but also in your classroom. And then, of course, as I said, this is linked with self-study, but acquiring new knowledge, taking an interest in a course online or in the classroom. There are obviously, sorry. There are obviously many benefits to lifelong learning. With lifelong learning comes a renewed sense of self-motivation. Very often we're stuck in a rut, doing things simply because we have to do them, going to work or cleaning the house, but we need to figure out what inspires us and reminds us what life is really all about. This is not a judgment on anybody, but I often cannot understand how in our field of work at university, a lecturer can still be teaching a course 30 years later with the same notes and using the same techniques. Lifelong learning is about getting engaged with that technology, getting engaged with your teaching practice, learning something. And of course, that all leads to motivation. And the more motivated you become, the more you want to learn. So it's the cycle that happens. Another benefit of lifelong learning is the recognition of personal interests and goals. Reigniting what makes you tick as a person reduces boredom, makes life more interesting, and can even open future opportunities for you. You will never know where your interests would lead you if you do not focus on them. And then the last benefit, of course, is improving personal and professional skills. While we are busy learning a new skill or acquiring new knowledge, we are also building other valuable skills that can help us in our personal and professional lives. Sorry, there's actually a fourth one, improved self-confidence. So not only are you motivated and you have all of these benefits, but it all leads to more self-confidence, because the more you know, the more confident you are in yourself. So the more knowledgeable or skilled in something you are, it can increase your self-confidence, both in your personal and professional lives. In our personal lives, this confidence can stem from a satisfaction of devoting time and effort to learning and improving and give us a sense of accomplishment. And in our professional lives, the self-confidence can be the feeling of trust that we have in our knowledge and the ability that we have to apply what we have learned. The next most important, another important dimension of intellectual wellness is being open to new ideas. And this links very much with curiosity and having that open mindset, or that growth mindset that I spoke about previously. A growth mindset means that you thrive on a challenge, that you don't see failure as a way to describe yourself, but as a springboard for growth and developing your abilities, your intelligence, and your talents. I always tell my students when it comes to criticism or failure, failure is a good thing. Failure is something that you need to grow. Nobody that has ever become very successful has not failed before. That it might be their 10th attempt at what they're doing, or maybe even their 100th attempt at what they're doing. But failure is a learning curve, and people really do need to learn to not take criticism that is meant well, not horrible criticism that is meant to break you down, but criticism that is meant well, to not take it personally. It was one of the hardest things that I had to learn, first as a teacher, because I taught for 11 years, and then as an academic. is that when people criticize your writing or your work, that it's not in a personal attack on you. In actual fact, they are just trying to help you be better. So I have a very open mind when it comes to criticism, and I try and teach my students that. Put aside the emotion and look at what the person is telling you. And if they have touched a nerve, perhaps they have a point. Perhaps you have something to learn and to grow from. Yeah, criticism is a good thing. Having an open growth mindset is also good. An active mind is essential to overall wellness. Being open to new ideas, thinking critically, being creative and curious, and being motivated are all keys to intellectual wellness. Ask yourself the question, are you able to look at things from different angles? Are you able to see things from various points of view? Is your mind open to new possibilities? I always have this discussion with one of my friends who is, it's a political discussion, and she has a very set political idea. And I always ask her when we have these chats, and luckily our friendship is strong enough to, sustain these chats, what is she scared of? Why is she so afraid to look at the other side? Nobody's saying that she needs to change her mind. She might change her mind based on evidence that's presented to her. But from a political standpoint, what will it hurt just to hear the other side? And you can see that in America, in particular with the Democrats and the Republicans, they have incredibly closed mindsets. They are not willing to hear the other side of the story, or to open their minds to what the other person has to say. And this leads to terrible conflict. So always ask yourself, are you able to look at things from a different angle? And if you are not, what are you afraid of? Why can't you look at things from a different angle? So if you are able to do this, then good for you, because people with such abilities, according to research, are great thinkers. They can think outside of the box and are creative in their approach to solving problems. Now, let me go back. So one of the things that you can do, but this takes a very special friendship to be able to do this without it becoming a fight, is to engage in debate. Debate where you present your points and they present their points without screaming and shouting over each other, trying to make sure that you are right, is a very good way to be open to new ideas. But you have to have that kind of relationship with a friend. I have one friend that I can do it with. Can you believe it? I've got lots of friends, but I've got one friend who has an open mind and will listen to the other side of the debate. But it can be very tricky. Okay, then the next one is creativity. Now, creativity is linked to all the aspects that I said before. Usually your creativity will lead you to be curious, or to learn new ideas, or to engage in lifelong learning. Creativity is linked sharply with mental health. It sharpens your mind. Creative ventures all have all kinds of positive impacts on your cognitive function, because they encourage out of the box and unconventional thinking that stimulate both the left side and the right side of your brain. So for example, painting and drawing can stimulate your hand-eye coordination, which triggers the right side of your brain and helps improve motor skills. But in the same way, dancing and playing a musical instrument help improve your memory and enhance cognitive function on the left side of your brain. So by expanding your repertoire of creative activities, you can heighten your connectivity between the two sides of your brain. Creativity also improves your mood. One of the most immediate effects of undertaking a creative project is mood improvement. Almost instantly, artistic expression helps you feel good. Even if you're not a world-renowned artist, you can release your creative side and be fulfilling. It can be fulfilling and uplifting and transform your day-to-day routine. A healthy dose of self-expression, whether that be slapping some paint on a canvas or doing some gardening creatively, that helps you to identify positively with yourself and your surroundings. Creativity also relieves stress and anxiety. Creative ventures help fight anxiety because they also activate those parts of your brain that process emotions. Music and art, for example, help to calm brain activity and allow a person to feel a sense of harmony. And once you have finished, That sense of purpose and fulfillment can decrease the stress and restlessness in all aspects of your life. I mean, we are constantly telling our matric students to listen to Bach and to, certain types of classical music when they are studying, because music has a great influence on your stress levels. And for me, most importantly, being creative combats depression. Creativity can also combat depression and loneliness if you take the time to include others in your artistic adventures. Dance classes, painting groups, and other social activities can be helpful for those who are suffering from emotional stress. I'm by no stretch of the imagination an artist, but I do enjoy drawing. So if I'm feeling a little bit stressed, my daughter is an artist, and we often just go and have a burger at Spur and sit and take out our sketchbooks and draw whatever comes to mind. So just that's one of my little drawings that I drew. Okay, then the next one is reading. Now, we live in a society where reading isn't as prized as it was years ago. There are a number of reasons for that: time, online activities, but reading really does help with your intellectual wellness. It might be really hard to do when you're spending most of your time doing things that teachers do, work-related activities, because not only are we working at school, we are working in the evenings at home, marking books, doing prep. So finding time to read is sometimes problematic, but try to find time to read, whether that be during the morning, during night, during the evening, whether you set time aside on the weekend to sit down and read. Just read, even if it's just for fun. Read something that you enjoy and something that can improve your intellect by stretching your mind to think about things you normally don't think about. When we read recipes, magazines, newspapers, articles, books, your head is filled with information, and you never know when you're going to be using that or find it useful. But having this information is always useful. Reading sparks imagination and creativity. So you can see how these are all linked. To be a lifelong learner, you need to read. To be creative, reading can help. If you're curious about something, you read about it. But reading sparks imagination and creativity, and being immersed in a new world, especially if it's in fiction with the characters and their lives. This will nurture your brain to develop ideas, possibilities, understandings, and even be more open to hearing the opinions of others. And then linked with reading, and it's something that is not mentioned very often, and it's actually not considered one of the keystones or dimensions of intellectual wellness, but it's something that I feel that should be mentioned, is journaling. Journaling helps to alleviate stress. It helps you to get your ideas straight. And taking time to write down your thoughts or journal frequently can help you when you're struggling to express feelings, or in general, help anybody who's trying to make sense of what they're feeling inside. Being able to identify your feelings and understand yourself more and your actions increases intellectual wellness and exposes your mind to deeper thinking. I thought I'd share with you some of the books that I'm reading constantly. Yes, I am by trade an English teacher, so I do love reading and I love words. So we have a book that is prescribed for our second years called The Dictionary of Lost Words. I don't teach that course, but I wanted to read the book to make sure that I know it and will know what the students are doing. And it's quite a new book, but it has already won a couple of book prizes. Then I'm also reading a book called Being Wrong. And Being Wrong is a book about helping you identify your own biases. So looking at fallacies about any of the fallacies, whether that, things that you believe that are wrong, or not having that open mindset. Then I'm really into looking at decolonizing the curriculum, as Dr. Esau mentioned in my bio. And one of the things I've come across recently in an attempt to work against that Eurocentric capitalistic move of time must happen, everything must happen now, everything must be quick, and students must just get on with it, is this idea of slow teaching. And I've read about it a little bit, and this week I actually bought the book, and I'm trying to figure out how I can slow down my teaching to find that calm, that clarity, and what kind of impact it will have on the classroom. if you're interested in reading about slow teaching, you should give it a shot, because sometimes it's called slow pedagogy, but it is a fascinating approach to teaching. And then my love of music has also led me to buy the new book by David Grohl, who was a drummer for the band Nirvana and is the lead singer for the group Foo Fighters. So my love of music has led me to want to read more about his story. And I love biographies. I love the stories about people. As I said in my introduction, I will sit and ask you so many questions about your life that you will start rethinking your life. I love personal stories, so I'll always have a biography going somewhere. I had a friend once ask me, are you reading all of these books at once? And I said, yes, but that's me. Some people can only concentrate on one book at a time. I read whatever I want to read at that time, whatever I feel like I need to read at that time. So it can take me a really long time to finish a book, but they all pack next to my bed and I keep it going. Okay, now hobbies. Obviously, linked with creativity, linked with curiosity. One of the best benefits is actually then channeling all of this into a hobby. You know, hobbies can be anything that you want it to be, anything. It could be board games, it could be playing cards, it could be any leisure activity that helps you with your intellectual wellness. It can be playing a musical instrument. As we've said before, you know, music has a wonderful impact on our minds. And of course, it can be doing things like crosswords and Sudoku and anything that makes you think. So channeling your creativity into hobbies is always a good idea. I thought I would finish off with just a little bit of an idea of how I look after my own intellectual wellness. It is not only focusing on my job, obviously, it's focusing a lot on my personal life. So I thought I'd share that with you. So the first thing I need to all warn you about is obviously nerd alert. I am a big nerd, and as a nerd, I love reading and I love words. It also comes from the fact that I love English, and that's my speciality. That's what I do. So words and reading are very important to me, and I can classify those as being part of my engaging in those activities are part of my intellectual wellness, looking towards improving my intellectual wellness. So I play games online like Wordle. In the old days, I used to buy the newspapers. In the old days, listen to me, I sound like I'm ancient. I used to buy newspapers and fill in the crossword puzzles in the newspapers. I was buying the You magazine at one stage, but I find that it's become too sensationalistic. Their crosswords are more about popular culture and actors. So I stopped buying those. But now I do crosswords online, and I play Words with Friends, which is an app that you can play through the Apple Store. I also try very hard to think critically about what I do. If somebody says something, I never take it at face value. I always ask why. And it drives people around me insane. So I'll give you an example. My daughter comes home from school and she's got a juicy tale to tell me, and she wants to tell me how terrible this person is and what they did. And I start questioning, but why did that person do that? Do you think, and put yourself in the other person's shoes. And the other day she stamped her foot, and I mean, she's 17 and a half, and she stamped her foot and said, can't you just keep quiet and just listen to my side of the story? So I've had to take that criticism and think carefully about, don't have to critically think about everything. Let people tell their stories, but still think critically. There's always two sides, actually three sides to a story. There's their side, your side, and then in the middle somewhere is the truth. But know the truth. Try and find the truth. The next thing that I pour a lot of attention, a lot of focus into, and I consider it as part of my professional intellectual well-being, is making sure that I'm on top of what's going on in my profession. I don't need to be an expert in everything, but I do at least need to know what's happening, and particularly with the use of technology for teaching, because things change so quickly. I mean, apps we were using 3 years ago don't even exist anymore, and we've moved on to bigger and better things. And with COVID and teaching online, obviously that push has become greater. So I'm constantly invested in reading up and finding out about teaching with technology, because it's one of my interests and it piques my curiosity and it motivates me to be a better teacher. I also want to be that network teacher. As I said, I want to know what's going on. So I read and try to speak to people and try and engage as much as I possibly can. I also very often have to take care not to go down that rabbit hole. What I mean by that is I can start investigating a topic and wipe my eyes out, and three hours have gone. I've gone down that rabbit hole of YouTube or that rabbit hole of Google. And you need to also, I need to watch that I don't invest too much time in this. Investment is important, but there's other aspects that also need attention. Once again, I told you I love words. So one of my favorite possessions is my book, my Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows, and I like to collect words. Now, the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows, for example, now I'm going to tell you all about what interests me, nerd alert. It collects these beautiful words that come from languages other than English. And so, for example, they've got the most beautiful words in this book. So, for example, the word sonder means it's a word that encapsulates a feeling. And that is the realization that each random passerby is the main character of their own story, living a life just as vivid and complex as your own, while you are just an extra living in the background. You know, when you get on the train or you walk into Pick and Pay, every single person in that shop has a life as rich and fulfilling as what yours is. And that realization that you have when you experience that is sonder. I like to, as I said, splat some paint on a canvas every now and then. I literally take the biggest brush I can find and I slap paint on and try and draw when I can. And it is such a stress reliever. During lockdown, I painted so much that I don't actually know what to do with my canvases now. They're not good enough to put up in my house. They're actually really bad, but I'm so proud of them because they kept me sane. So they're all piled up in my spare room at the moment. And then I'm a plant mama. One of my biggest loves is my plants. I spend an inordinate amount of time with my plants, fixing them, pruning them, watering them, feeding them, and also spending a lot of time watching videos of other plant people. I mean, on the app TikTok, there's a whole genre called Plant Talk that you can follow, where people talk about how to look after plants and what to do if what is happening. And I spend a lot of time. My house looks like a jungle. And of course, as I said, I am a big Googler. I Google a lot in terms of wanting to know things, but also in terms of socializing. When we get together, my friends and I often play games. My daughter and I like to play Rummy Cub. You know, we try and stimulate ourselves like that. But the joke of the matter is when we're doing it, we're not purposefully sitting down saying, well, now I'm going to improve my intellectual wellness. It's something that comes naturally from our curiosity and what we love doing. It's become part of our lives. And then the last thing is my friends. I cannot be who I am intellectually without my friends. The support that I get from my friends, the debates I'm able to have, and of course the engagement, that engagement that we spoke about is all important. So it's all about the linking of all the other aspects of the wellness wheel that come together to help you grow intellectually and to keep your intellectual mental health well. And yeah, I'm going to finish off my presentation with that and just say thank you very much. I have included in my presentation 3 YouTube videos about intellectual wellness or intellectual well-being. They are very short videos. They are maybe 6 minutes each, and you can watch them if you like. They really are. They succinctly sum up what I've been rabbiting on about for the last, I'm not sure, is it an hour almost? No, 45 minutes. Okay, but thank you so much. I'd just like to finish off there and stop sharing my screen. And yeah, welcome any discussion.
Wow, 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 wow. Now you know why she is a professor. And I say that with all the respect and with all the acknowledgement in the world. What an absolutely profound and enlightening session. In fact, I'm always enlightened when I leave a conversation with Prof. Candice. So many practical tips, and I've been challenged. I've been challenged to read wider than, my research, wider than the classes that I present. Yes, and I hope you've also been challenged. I'm going to open the floor for any questions that you might have for Prof, or any anything that you want to contribute to this conversation. You can just switch on your camera and then you can start talking, or you can raise your hand. Anybody? Henry, our non-teacher.
Hi, Prof. Candice. Thank you so very much for this very comprehensive presentation this morning. It was absolutely mind-boggling. And as you discuss something, I put down a question and then you cover it in your next slide. So that is how amazing it was. I, however, would like you to perhaps spend a minute just on talking about how innovation can be used to help us navigate this intellectual well-being path that we're on.
Sure. Innovation is something that goes hand in hand with teaching. People do dissertations and research on innovation in teaching all the time, but even in the world that we live in, without innovation, there would be no progress. And innovation comes from the curiosity and the motivation and the lifelong learning. Somebody somewhere was interested in something and wanted to solve a problem. So we as teachers are innovators. We innovate every single day in our classroom simply because we have students or learners that walk in, and we have to adjust our teaching style to accommodate everybody. I can remember when I was a matric English teacher, I had 2 classes in my final year, and they were completely different classes, and I would teach the same subject matter to them differently because I needed to innovate and think about how to approach the way that they needed to be taught in order to get the maximum information across. And funny enough, it came down to a breakdown. The one class had more boys in it than girls, and I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but yeah, I needed to think innovatively, and I needed to bring in more activities that were physical and engage the boys more, while with the girls I could, play the romantic music and ask them to make associations with Lady Macbeth. With the boys, that didn't work. So innovation is about practicing and experimenting. Experimentation is the most important thing. Remember that whatever you are passionate about, you're never going to implement that passion perfectly the first time. You have to practice and practice and practice. And I can just quote Malcolm Gladwell. Malcolm Gladwell is an American psychologist who writes these amazing books like The Tipping Point and David and Goliath. And he told the story about 10,000 hours. And he says in order to be an expert in something, you need to practice it for 10,000 hours. And he broke it down. And he said, for example, a chess player, they start playing when they are 6 years old. And eventually by the time they are 24, they are world-renowned chess players. And if you break it down, they've been practicing for an average of 10,000 hours. But the point is that during those 10,000 hours, there was a lot of failure that happened. There was a lot of criticism that happened. There was a lot of innovation that happened because they had to try different things in order to make it work. And it's this complete cycle of failure. I won't call it failure, but not quite succeeding, perhaps is the better word, using innovation to fix that through curiosity, through engagement, through reading and lifelong learning, and eventually becoming the expert in whatever field it might be, whether it is being a plant mom, or whether it is being a chess player, or whether it is being a teacher. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prof. Anybody else has a question? Anything to contribute to the conversation? Anybody? Okay, then I'm going to give over to Merlin. Merlin has something to say.
Yes, I'm here. Hi, Prof. Thank you very much for this insightful presentation. We really appreciate it. And we can see now that you are a true pioneer of education, especially lifelong learning. Thank you for paving out the way for us as teachers, as also as lifelong scholars. We appreciate you, and we know you're definitely going to make an impact in the education of South Africa and even the broader Africa as well. Thank you very much, and thank you to our hostess and every teacher who put out the time to be here in this online session. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was only a pleasure being here.
Thank you, Prof, and thank you so much for everybody. I just want to reiterate one aspect of Prof's bio is that she is the coordinator of the B.Ed Honours program. Now, I started my BA when my honours when I was 42 years old, and not that I'm living with regrets, but I wish I've really done it sooner. So I am urging and I'm challenging you to contact us at CPUT to do your honors. Go on to do your master's and PhD. Sometimes we think these things are so far-fetched and so out of our reach, but it isn't. Once you are in it, it's difficult. It's not easy. But once you are in it to win it. I just made that up, Prof. How good am I?
Keep moving forward.
Please, teachers, somebody said in the week, you are not a tree. You don't have to be stuck where you are at, right? So if you want to make a change to your situation, if you want to improve your qualification, the world is your oyster. Go and start with it. Just start. Sometimes we overthink things, like Prof said. Sometimes we think about what if, what not, but just go for it. It can only benefit you, and I am proof of that. Thank you so much once again, Prof.
Thank you.
Thank you for now, and we will then continue. Thank you. This is actually the part where we give you the flowers and the chocolates and the stuff in person, but we will get to that. Thank you so much, Prof. Bye-bye.
So I just see there's a question in the chat. Can I just respond to that quickly?
Question.
Yes. Yeah, it's actually more a statement. I'm waiting on my application response from CPUT. Yes, we are currently in the process of sifting through the applications and sending out notifications. So hopefully you'll hear soon. Thank you.
The right direction. Great stuff.
Sorry, Dr. Isa. Can I just ask that the peer mentors stay online when we all exit? That the peer mentors can just stay online for me for another minute. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, and goodbye. Peer mentors, we'd like to chat to you.
Bye-bye, everybody.